deep in the frozen taiga, where snow falls silent and trees stand like ancient guardians, Forester John Miller made a discovery that would haunt him for 15 years. What he saw that winter morning was impossible. A young girl, barefoot in the snow, wearing nothing but torn cloth and tree bark. But it wasn't her appearance that froze him in place. It was the detail he noticed on her shoulder. A detail that would later unravel a mystery everyone thought was buried forever. The taiga in winter is a lonely place. John had been working these woods for over 20 years. He knew every trail, every frozen stream, every hiding spot where wolves made their dens. At 52 years old, with gray touching his temples and lines etched deep around his eyes, John thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. It was February 15th, 2010. The kind of morning where your breath turns to ice crystals before it leaves your lips. John had been checking the northern boundary, a routine patrol he'd done 1,000 times before. The snow was fresh, unmarked except for deer tracks and the occasional fox trail. That's when he saw the footprints. Human footprints, bare feet, in snow that registered 15 degrees below zero. John stopped walking. His heart began to pound, not from exertion, but from something primal, something that whispered danger. No one came out this far. The nearest town was 40 miles south, and no one, absolutely no one, walked barefoot in this cold. He followed the tracks. The prints led deeper into the forest, winding between ancient pines whose branches sagged under the weight of snow. John's hand moved instinctively to the radio on his belt, but something stopped him from calling it in. Not yet, not until he understood what he was seeing. The tracks were small, a woman's or perhaps a teenager's. They didn't waver or stumble. They moved with purpose, as if the person making them felt no cold, no pain, no fear. Then, through the trees ahead, he saw movement. John's breath caught in his throat. A young woman stood 30 feet away, partially hidden behind a massive pine trunk. She was watching him. Her hair was long and wild, tangled with small twigs and what looked like frost. Her clothing, if you could call it that, appeared to be made from animal hides and strips of bark, roughly sewn together. Her feet were bare against the white snow, but she wasn't shivering. "Hello?" John called out, and his voice barely above a whisper. He raised one hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. Are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl tilted her head, studying him the way a wild animal studies something unfamiliar. Her eyes were sharp, alert, and completely unafraid. She couldn't have been more than 19 or 20 years old, though something about her seemed both younger and infinitely older at the same time. She didn't speak. She didn't run. She simply stood there, watching, waiting. John took a slow step forward. "I'm not going to hurt you." "My name is John. I'm a forester. I work in these woods. Can you understand me?" Still no response. But she didn't retreat either. That's when John noticed it. The detail that would burn itself into his memory for the next 15 years. On her left shoulder, barely visible beneath the ragged animal skin she wore, was a birthmark. A distinctive crescent-shaped mark the color of red wine. John's blood turned to ice, colder than the air around him. He knew that birthmark. 15 years ago, when he'd first started working this territory, there had been a search. A massive search that had brought helicopters, tracking dogs and volunteers from 3 counties. A family had gone missing while camping in these woods. The parents' bodies were found after a week, victims of a sudden blizzard and exposure. But their daughter, Sarah, was never found. She had been 5 years old. The search went on for months. John himself had spent countless hours combing these forests, calling her name until his voice gave out. They eventually declared her dead, assumed taken by wolves or lost to the elements. A small memorial stood in the town park with her name and that distinctive birthmark mentioned in the description, a crescent moon on her left shoulder. Sarah? The name fell from John's lips like a prayer. Sarah Henderson? The girl's eyes widened just a fraction. It was the first real reaction she'd shown. Her hand moved to her shoulder, covering the birthmark instinctively, protectively. She knew the name. She recognized it. But instead of coming closer, instead of showing relief or recognition, she took a step backward. Her expression changed from curiosity to something else, wariness, and beneath that, John could swear he saw fear. "Wait," John said gently. "Please wait. I remember you. I was part of the search team. We looked for you. Everyone looked for you. Your grandparents, they never gave up hope. They still live in Miller's Creek. They still have your room exactly as you left it." Sarah, if that's who she truly was, shook her head slowly. She took another step back, her bare feet moving silently on the snow. For the first time, John noticed scars on her arms and legs. Old scars, long healed, the marks of someone who had survived against impossible odds. She had been 5 years old when she vanished. 5 years old, lost in a frozen forest that killed experienced hikers. Yet here she stood, alive, adapted, transformed into something between human and wild. "How did you survive?" John whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was asking her or the forest itself. Sarah opened her mouth, and for a moment John thought she might speak. But what came out wasn't words. It was a sound, low and whistling, like wind through pine needles. A warning? A call? From deeper in the forest, the sound was answered. More figures emerged from between the trees. 2, then 3, then 4. All young, all dressed in similar primitive clothing, all moving with the same wild grace. They formed a protective circle around Sarah. And John realized with a shock that she wasn't alone. She had never been alone. These woods had somehow claimed her, raised her, and given her a new family. John's hand moved again to his radio. One call. One simple call, and this would become a rescue operation. Sarah would be taken back to civilization, to her grandparents, to the life she'd lost 15 years ago. She'd have doctors, therapists, a warm bed, regular meals, everything a person needed. But as he looked into her eyes, really looked, he saw something that made him pause. She wasn't suffering. She wasn't crying out for help. She was home. John's hand dropped from the radio. "I see," he said softly. "I see you're not lost anymore." He reached into his pack slowly, carefully, and pulled out a bright orange scarf. It was new, warm, waterproof. He laid it on the snow between them, along with a small bundle of food he'd brought for his lunch. Granola bars, jerky, and apple. "In case you ever need anything," he said. "I patrol this area every Thursday. I'll leave supplies here at this tree. No questions, no authorities, just in case you ever need help, or if you ever want to come back." Sarah stared at the offering for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. It was small, slight, but unmistakable. A gesture of understanding between two people who both loved these woods. She nodded once, then turned and melted back into the forest with her companions. Within seconds, they had vanished completely, leaving only footprints in the snow. John kept his promise. Every Thursday for the next 15 years, he left supplies at that same pine tree. Sometimes they were taken, sometimes they weren't. He never saw Sarah again, though occasionally he'd find small signs. A carved piece of wood, a woven grass bracelet. Once, a perfectly preserved bird's nest placed carefully on top of his supply bundle. Messages, proof of life, proof that some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. He never told anyone about that encounter. The Henderson family eventually moved away, unable to bear the memories. The case file grew dusty in some basement archive. The town memorial faded under seasons of rain and sun. But John knows the truth. He carries it with him every time he walks these woods. Sarah Henderson didn't die in the taiga 15 years ago. She was reborn here. The forest that took her parents somehow gave her a different gift, a different life. Sometimes, on quiet winter mornings when the snow falls soft and the world holds its breath, John stands at that old pine tree and smiles. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of civilization and its certainties, a girl who should have died learned instead to live. And that crescent moon birthmark, the detail that connected past to present, became a symbol of the most profound truth John ever learned. Some people aren't meant to be rescued. Some people are meant to be free.